Do you have a useless degree? Are you concerned that either the subject of your degree won't get you a job or that it won't get you the sort of job that you'd like to do because it's in a completely different area? Is it worth you going back to college or university to get another degree? Those are the questions that we answer in this episode. I'm Jeremy Klein, and this is Change Work Life. Hello and welcome to Change Work Life, the show where we're all about beating the Sunday evening blues and enjoying Mondays again. Today we're talking about education. There's no question education is important, but what I want to dive into this week is how much your future career is defined by what you studied. If you studied engineering or law or biology or whatever it might be at college or university, how much does that determine your options in the future? And if you've got kids who might go to college, or if you're thinking about going back to college yourself or university, what's the best way to approach a decision about what to study? To help answer these questions, I'm delighted this week to be joined by Zack Ballinger. Zack is a motivational speaker, author, career consultant, and host of The Zack Ballinger Show, a podcast and YouTube channel where he interviews professionals from all sorts of fields to help you explore the different career pathways available to you. Zack, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeremy, so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Can you expand on some of the things I mentioned that you've got going on at the moment? What's life for Zack Ballinger look like?
It's been a whirlwind. So right now I'm building out the website. As you mentioned, we've embarked on this journey almost a year ago to create a career library. What I found is nobody really had this idea of how many careers were out there in North America. And there's different statistics out there, but I've honed it down to about 821. So my goal is to get about 821 individual interviews with career paths all over North America. And individuals will, let's say they're interested in being a veterinarian or a consultant, whatever it may be, they'll be able to go to a career website link, listen to the interview with me and that person, get an idea. And then here's the most valuable part. About 98% of the people offer up a secondary contact. So they say, if anybody's interested in this particular career, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Here's my social media. That's where the impact is we're having, because a lot of people come to me and say, Zack, how do I get connected with somebody that's a veterinarian? I don't know anybody. I'm only 18 years old. I don't know if it's something I'd like to do. This career library is starting to change the paradigm of the way we look at career fields, and it's all about education.
That's amazing. What was your inspiration for putting this library together?
The book, Don't Be a Zombie, How to Find a Career You Love, that I wrote, I talked about it in my TED Talk. My TED Talk inspired my new book that I just wrote. And I talk about, in one section of the book, I talk about the problem in North America is we don't know how many careers are out there. We don't know anything about them. We don't study them in school. So most of the average Americans that you go to that's in college or high school, I say, hey, name some career pathways. Teacher, firefighter, engineer. They can only name about 20. If we don't know that those career pathways are out there and there's another opportunity for us, how do we know we might not love it or be good at it? And so this is what inspired me, is just going around talking to people around especially college students, when people were choosing their major, and I'm saying, well, what career do you want to do? I have no idea. Well, we might want to put some time behind that. So that really inspired the career library.
And I've got to ask, how far into the library are you? How many entries have you got racked up so far?
Well, we're just scratching the surface on it. I just had started this journey a little over, under a year. So it's probably August is my first episode and getting warmed up. But I'll be happy to let you know, we've got about 90 episodes already of different career paths. So we're humming right along, and people seem to be excited to share their journey.
You mentioned that you talk a lot to kids in high school and those in college. And that's what I really want to focus on in our conversation today. Let's start with a really general question. How important is it, would you say, what you study at college in terms of the impact it has on your career?
None. And that's kind of cringeworthy. I'm pretty blunt, so let me get down to the brass tacks of it. So I've interviewed a lot of people. I've gotten to meet people from all walks of life, from janitors to CEOs. I've gotten to speak to multiple groups, from college students to people at corporations. Jeremy, I would say about 98% of people that are in their particular career are not have the major that they went to school with. So in other words, we spend a lot of time, and I think it's important for college students to take it serious. In fact, in my book, I talk about how you should explore different majors, how you should work with your career counselors to make sure that you get a right major. Because, if you do like the field of study that you study, that's kind of cool to be in college and doing that. But, my brother's a great example. He's a lot younger than me, and he almost, his junior year, he came to me and he said, "Zach, I don't like engineering. What should I do?" And I said, "Finish your degree." "Well, I don't like it." And I said, you made it this far. What a degree does, it's a piece of paper, and it helps you to get jobs that require degrees. But a lot of times your life experience, your passions, your strengths change over time. So I encouraged my brother to finish his degree. Guess what? He graduated. He finished it. He's applying to veterinarian school right now. His passion is animals. So that's what he wants to do. And he's found it. But it wasn't engineering, but that engineering background, that education helped prepare him. He completed all of his sciences now. And now he's applying for vet school, and he'll probably go to a very good one. So, a long about answer, Jeremy, I don't see it when I talk to people is it really matters that much.
So why do people get so hung up on it, particularly in terms of careers? I mean, I see on jobs forums, people are often asking, which major should I do? Which one's got the best career outlook? Why are people getting hung up on that sort of question?
Yeah, and now let me back up a few steps. When I say it doesn't matter, also, you also don't want to, in America, we've got a big problem because people will go into debt and spend $250,000 for a 4-year degree. They'll come out and it'll be a psychology major. And the average psychology social work major pays about $30,000 a year. So there's immediate pressure. And you have to like your job because of the money situation. So let's be smart about education. That's a concept that we could really think about in picking your schools that we can afford. And sometimes kids can't afford school. And I'm sorry, I was one of them. I had to do multiple things. I worked 3 part-time jobs. I went to a state university. I turned out just fine. So, when I say it doesn't matter, we also don't want to be getting degrees in underwater basket weaving. And, something like that, you want to really think about your degree. Now, I think there's so much pressure in our society. Like you said, you get on job board, you see, well, what major do I pick? What do I need to do this? Because there's this automatic pressure. Well, I think I want to be an accountant, even though I've never researched accounting, even though I've never taken one class, even though I've declared it my major. It's automatically something that should I do. So what should I major in? And then all these people start talking and we just fall into this path. We just merely meander along. We get our degree. We think accounting's it. And we realize, wait, we should have probably even had a finance degree. That would have helped us more. So bottom line is, I think there's a lot of societal pressures on what degree we have. I would say, pick a degree that's obviously applicable to you, but you want to think about it. But at the end of the day, does it really matter? And the answer is no.
So if we take someone who accepts that whatever they study isn't necessarily going to make a huge amount of difference to their career, and they're also at a stage in life where they don't really know what career they want to do, they know that they want to go to university. They think that it's a good thing for them to do. How does that person go about choosing what subjects to study and what to major in?
Great question. 3 ways, real quick. Number one, best advice, if you're going to go to a state school, you need to get plugged in with your career service center immediately. And I preach this so much. Anybody that's listened to my interviews, they probably are like, Zach, this is such a broken record, but it is so true. When you're a freshman, when you're 18 years old, start working with your career counselor. They've got tools and information and things to help you identify majors based on strengths. So they'll have you take an inventory of your strengths. They can match it up with actual majors and then give you some assignments to read those actual majors to see what that translates into the marketplace. So number one, get in your career service centers early and often. Let them know exactly what you asked me, Jeremy. Look, I don't know what to major in. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know my strengths. Help me out here. They'll know exactly where to begin because that's most college students' dilemmas.
That's really interesting. Sorry, just to say, that's really interesting because you described it as a career service, but this isn't about careers. This is about picking your majors. So I think there's a branding issue here, isn't there? They need to position themselves. I mean, maybe they do, and it's not something I'm familiar with here in the UK. But if someone said to me career service, I'd think, okay, they're going to help me work out what job I want to do, not necessarily what major I want to do.
You bring up such a good point, and I could talk for about an hour on that. We don't have that long. So basically, I've spoken to these career service centers, the leaders of it. I went around the United States and actually presented at a lot of their major conferences. And one of the things we talk about is branding. They're actually trying to rebrand themselves because students and parents often get, if you see career service center, you automatically think job placement. So students are going to think, oh my gosh, I don't have to do anything. I can show up the last day and these people will automatically just get me a job. Not how it works. Now they're trying to rebrand themselves as a career center of excellence in careers or something like that. Each university has now started this new rebranding system, College Career Center. They're taking out that word service. I say service just because that's the old school way. But now in the States, they've really started to rebrand them because, like you said, you automatically think these people are going to find us jobs. So that's what students were thinking. That's what parents were thinking. Well, that's what I try to get the word out. If you see something career oriented, ask when you get to school, where's the career building? Just a simple career building. They'll know exactly what you're talking about. You want to talk to a guidance counselor. You want to talk to a career coach. These people are certified to be able to help you. And so that's a quick way to do it. Another way, if you're a student, there's several personality profile tests that are out there. There's job banks for free. My book mentions a few of them. DISC is a great way. It finds out your personality, what kind of concepts you work with. There's actually certain DISC programs that are offshoots of that, where you take that personality and then it shows you kind of what career it may be aligned to based on your personality. Do you like to sit behind a desk? Are you active? Do you like to work in teams? Do you like to talk to people? And then it shows you different career pathways. So those are two tools as a student you can do right now to begin trying to form what your major will eventually be.
And I think you mentioned three things that students need to figure out.
I was kind of long-winded, so I wanted to make sure that we had plenty of time. But another way, to really figure out your major, let's say you've got it narrowed down, and I found this so true, is that high school students are nowadays getting on LinkedIn. And it's because they've had a teacher inspire them to do it. It's such a smart idea, even at 17, 18-year-olds, starting to build your own brand, because that's what LinkedIn, it's a brand. It represents your brand. And so I'm starting to see some creative students that are seniors and college students that are freshmen build their whole LinkedIn page and start adding connections with alumni, with their friends and with their neighbors, with parents, friends, and neighbors. You kind of start with your own network. You start adding those up, and then you begin seeing things in your LinkedIn profile that people do, their careers. You join the alumni association that you're going to go to school at. And guess what? You reach out to some of those alumni and you say, hey, here's what I'm Zach. I'm just starting college. I'm kind of getting my feet wet in this whole thing. I'm actually looking for what major I should major in. Any advice? And when you start to reach out, things start to happen and you start to meet connections. And then you might pop into somebody in your network that you're like, wow, you do what? Tell me more about that career. And a lot of times these alumni networks, guess what they want to do, Jeremy? They love helping alumni. I'm a part of one. So anybody that says University of Tennessee, that person automatically pops up on the top of my list to help. And so if they're interested in different careers and they want help and they say, hey, I'm Zack, I'm reaching out. I'm a freshman at UT. I would love to pick your brain about some careers. I see that you do this. I'm interested in it. It's a great way. And selfishly, another great way now that more colleges are getting interested into is going to be my career library. Is people that have never seen these careers before, they might all of a sudden start picking different majors that work for them. So there's kind of four ways, if you will.
You mentioned the cost of going to college, and here in the UK, it's not as expensive as it is in the US, but it's still, quite an investment of time and money. How do you figure out whether going to college or university is even the right thing to do? Because there is, I think, a certain given that kind of, going to university, that's what you do, that's what everyone should do. But I can't believe that it's necessarily the right thing for everybody to do it. I'd be interested to hear your view on that.
Yeah, parents are going to have to cover their ears. And so here we go. It's not for everybody. And that's hard to say that, as parents don't like me to say that, but it's true. Not all of us need to go to college. It's just that simple. Now, do I encourage secondary education? Absolutely. I encourage it. I think you should. If you don't know what you want to do, you should absolutely go for your degree route. I encourage it at a, like you said, on a budget if you have one. But here's the problem. We've got so many bright, young students out there. And I told you this story. I met someone I was given a talk to at my old high school. And they said, my mom wants me to go to college, but I love working on cars. And I said, well, so have you been in vocational school? And he's like, I've been in vocational school here in high school. I really love working on cars. I think it's my passion. My parents don't want me to do that. It's a pretty tough conversation to have with somebody that's 18. And so I say, at the end of the day, you have to pick your own career. It's not your parents' decision. You have to eventually do that. And that may be with a little bit of backlash at first. But guess what? They're most worried about you. So if you prove to them that you can make a living and that you prove them you're going to be okay, then the worries go away and it's not a big deal. Well, guess what? This guy now owns a very large automotive mechanic repair shop in his town. He's like the go-to guy to get your car worked on. He makes a lot more money than most people that have went to college. And he loves what he does. He loves to work and fix on cars. Welders. I met all peoples from different walks of life. These blue-collar fields that love to work with their hands. Contractors, bricklayers. Believe it or not, people actually, for me, it's a different concept because I've never been good with my hands. I've always wanted to be, but I've seen people do miraculous things with their hands by simply going to vocational school. Another friend of mine, a diesel mechanic, 2-year technical college, no degree, loves fixing diesel engines. And that's his area of expertise. I couldn't tell you where a screw was on one. And so that's his gift in life. That's his passion. And I really think in America, we do really a disservice of selling these jobs short. There are certain people that are going to be better working with their hands than they are doing textbook work. And we've got to embrace that and encourage our children to go that route, especially if their passion leads them there.
Another question I've seen come up quite often, and you touched on it in the context of your brother. If you start a major and you get, partway through, maybe you're a year in, you're not like, 2.5 years in, but you a year in and you discover you hate it. You just really don't like the subject. You dread going to lectures. You dread picking up the textbooks. How bad is it to change major partway through?
It's fine to change it. Let's say a student came to me, and I've had students come to me after their first year and say, Zach, no way. Absolutely not. I hate this. That's fine with me. Where I give advice is where people come to me and say, well, I'm not really sure. It just seems, I'm not, may change it to this. In other words, they don't really know. But when you get a student that's fired up and saying, like me, if you stick me in accounting, Jeremy, I'm going to say, no way, I cannot do this. I will not take another class. And I would switch, absolutely, because I tried that path. and in the first class, I knew that this is not going to be for me. So I would actually encourage those students, especially if that's year 1, year 2, you're in it. It happens all the time. It's easy to change. In other words, I've met a lot of students who thought they wanted to go into pre-med, and they take their first science and they're like, okay, made a big mistake here. Got to backtrack. And so science is not my forte. I'm not good at this. That's an easy switch. No problem. I have no problem with that. I think that the difference is where I challenge students is if they're in their junior, senior year, especially senior year, and they're right in it and they're like, well, I really don't like it. I didn't like this class, but I got a 3.5 GPA. Like finish. You're almost to the finish line. Finish it. Does that kind of make sense where the difference is for those different individuals?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what someone can do to kind of better their odds of choosing something that they enjoy. I mean, I've got to highlight that in the UK, we have a bit of a different system in that you choose the subject of your undergraduate degree from the start. So you will do a law degree or a psychology degree or a business studies degree. You don't kind of go for your first year and try out a few things and then eventually settle on what you major in. But assuming that you've got options, I mean, what's the best thing you can do kind of when you get there, apart from using the career service that you mentioned? I mean, can you try out lots of different things and see what sticks?
That's the beauty of the U.S. The great thing is you're right. It is different because the first 2 years are basically your required courses. You don't even get into your major until year 3. So a lot of times what I see students doing is they put their time into focusing in on what major makes sense to them. What do they like to do? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? They take personal inventory. And then they decide, they take classes that they think might be of interest, even in their general studies. So you have to have your English, you have to have your math, you have to have your history. But what they're also doing is people that do the research, they're taking elective courses. And elective courses in the United States are basically you have to have a certain amount of electives, but they can be any class you can think of, anything you want. And so what I did in college, I took electives because they were easy. I took weightlifting. I took Health 101. I took all these easy electives just because I wanted to get the easy A and I wanted to boost my GPA. But electives can actually serve as a great way for students to learn particular career paths. So let's say, marketing might be, you have an interest in marketing. I think the best way is first to network with somebody. And then if you want to enroll into a course, a one-on-one course, why not use that elective as an opportunity when you're a freshman or a sophomore? So during those first 2 years, you really can focus in on it. Now, we don't spend a lot of time doing it, but that's certainly something different in our educational system. Is you're exactly right. In those first 2 years, we just do the required courses at first. So it gives a student some opportunity to kind of poke around and seeing it. Just got to make sure we're not, the student's not out there playing beer pong polka the first 2 years the whole time, that we're actually focusing in on what we want to major in.
This is definitely something I think the British system could learn from the US system. I think the idea of doing, a whole section of a whole load of 101 courses, just saying, that sounds interesting, give that a go, and just seeing what sticks. I think that's a great idea. I want to pick up on something else that you said earlier. I think your example was underwater basket weaving. Sometimes people say, oh, I've got this useless degree in blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, maybe I've been working for a year and, I don't know what to do. Are there really any degrees or subjects which you can say are completely useless?
That's such a great question. I think there's degrees out there that can make it tougher on the individual. And so let's say you're a college student and you've majored in, and it's been a long time since I've been in school, but I try to keep up with the majors. But let's say, you've majored in a very, basketball or whatever it is, and, you have a 2.0 GPA, and you're out there and you're trying to compete for a sales job against 200 other college applicants that have marketing, sales, management, 3.0, 3.5 GPA degrees. It can make your search difficult. Now, is it impossible? Absolutely not. I meet a lot of people, as you know, that have finished their degree and they're like, hey, I picked communication because it was the easiest. Communications, or I picked geology, rocks for jocks. So I finished my degree in that. And they get out and they may have a little bit of a tougher time, like I said, because, they weren't focused on school. But does that hinder you your whole life? Absolutely not. Now, that's a mindset thing. And that has to start with you. I hear that a lot too, is, well, I've worked, majored in this useless degree. So social studies seems to be big here in the U.S. where people are complaining about. I went, and got my social science degree or social studies degree, and it's useless and there's nothing I can do now. That's just not true. I met a lot of people with social science degrees or general studies degrees that have went on and been successful. The degree part is a 4-year degree. It shows that you spent discipline to study. You have the education. You've met other people. You've lived in an environment. It is simply a certificate where you take it out into the marketplace. Again, some places, because of your degree, let's say you wanted to work, at a big corporate accounting firm in the United States. Well, obviously, those are people from that area that are hiring entry-level students do look and see if you have an accounting degree. Look and see if you have, what your GPA was. So it may limit you from some things, but it's not an excuse to eliminate you completely. And so I would encourage your audience. The most important thing is when you're going out is to have this degree. I'll give you an example of outside sales. A lot of these technical fields in the United States, their requirement is a 4-year degree. You'll look at a lot of times on these job boards on LinkedIn, it says sometimes requirement 4-year degree. A lot of times I've never seen them say requirement 4-year degree, here's the major. It just says requirement 4-year degree. So I think a lot of that might be a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. I hope that answers your question. That's a long-winded answer.
It does. So I think, to paraphrase what you said, it's the degree itself shows, whatever it's in, it shows a certain application. It shows a certain diligence for completing a degree course. It gives you skills, whatever the subject matter might be. You have demonstrated and probably acquired some skills just by virtue of doing a 4-year degree course, and that will set you in good stead. Sure, you might struggle with competition with others depending on what it is you're going for and what your major was, but it is still something that employers look at and go, okay, yeah, this shows that you were capable of doing this, and not everyone is.
Absolutely. Spot on.
So most people listening to this podcast probably will already have been through the education system. So I'm hoping that this will at least provide them with some reassurance if they kind of look back on their career history and the degree they did and realize that that doesn't necessarily close any doors for them. But if you've got someone who is seriously thinking about a change of career and they're perhaps thinking about going back into education and maybe doing another bachelor's or maybe doing a postgraduate degree of some description, what sort of things should that person think about before they choose what they're going to do and commit and sign the check?
Such a great question. Such a great question, because I come across this all the time. What happens, Jeremy, in the United States, when somebody loses their job, and it's devastating, it really is. I've lost my job before, so I know how it feels. We panic, and rightfully so. You know, we got responsibilities coming in. So I often meet with them people, and I talk to them, and they say, you know, I'm scared. I just got laid off after 12 years out of the blue. I think I need to go back to school. And I say, well, wait a minute. What are we going back to school for? And they're like, I don't know. Maybe I need a master's degree. And I'm like, okay, why do you need a master's degree? You don't know what you're going to do. So I think there's a lot of panic, rightfully so. I understand when we lose our jobs or something happens in the workplace, we automatically think that the education is going to fix our problem. And sadly, it doesn't always do that. So where I encourage people to go back to school to either get another bachelor's, a master's degree, or even a higher degree is they have to have a plan in mind. So if I met with somebody the other day who said, Zach, I want to be a nurse. I've always known I wanted to be a nurse. I majored in communications, but, you know, for me, I loved helping people. My mom was a nurse. She was an RN. That to me is a slam dunk case. Yes, you need to go back to school and be an RN. You need to be a registered nurse because she's passionate about it. She's ready. She's spent time in it. She knows what she wants to do. And she has to have the degree to go into nursing. So that's a slam dunk. Go back. Go get your RN degree. Where I want to challenge your audience that are out there listening to it, a degree is not a Band-Aid. It doesn't patch up everything. So if you're out there and you've lost your job or you hate your job, a degree doesn't automatically fix things, especially if you don't know where you're going. And education is simply a tool to get you to your passion. And we often use education as a Band-Aid to try to fix our situation, and it won't. And that's where I want to encourage your audience. Now, if they've already got a degree and they know exactly what they want to do, let's say they want to be an engineer. They've always wanted to do this. They've talked to people. They've done their homework. They've realized the price. They know the financial responsibility. They know what hours it's going to set them back. Because, Jeremy, a lot of times I meet people and they get into school and they're like, I can't do this. Drop out after a semester. So your heart has to be into it too. But don't let a job loss, don't let you hating your job be the reason where you're saying, okay, I got to go back to school for any old degree. It doesn't matter. Not how it works. You need to be focused and have the information in front of you.
One of the postgraduate degrees that has an awful lot of cachet, or at least it seems to, is the MBA. Does everything that you've just said about education not being a tool and needing to focus on what it's going to do for you, does that apply equally to an MBA? Because that's another thing where you see lots of people who go, maybe I should get an MBA.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, you know, here's the thing about an MBA. I don't have an MBA degree. You know, I thought about it, but what value would an MBA degree bring me? And so you look at your current situation, and if you think it's going to help you gain something in the career force, sure, go for it. So, you know, a lot of times I'll meet professionals who like their job and they're like, you know, my company's willing to pay me $6,000 or $8,000 more a year if I just had my MBA, and they're going to pay for it. Okay, why not? They're going to pay for it. You're going to make some more money each year at your company. Sure. Now, if you're out of work, you're exactly right, Jeremy. Everybody runs to the MBA. There's an MBA, and I don't know what it is like in the UK, but in the United States, MBAs are a dime a dozen now. Now, back in the 80s, they're very, you know, few and far between. But now I feel like everybody's got an MBA. And what happens is when everybody starts to get these degrees, I meet even so many kids in college who have the game plan. hey, I'm going to business school. I'm not getting any experience, and I'm going on to get my MBA. Tons of people with their MBAs that way. Not a bad thing to have your MBA. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is I almost feel like people, they run to an MBA degree, Master's in Business Administration, to think that that's going to fix their whole world. And then guess what? I meet a lot of people on the other end of that. Went into debt a lot, sacrificed family time, $90,000 in debt. They picked an MBA school that's too expensive. Now they're sitting at home without a job still, and they have their MBA degree. And it's really been no service to them in the marketplace. So you have to be strategic with these decisions. So you mentioned a really common degree when people run out to and get. I really believe it still applies to the MBA degree, the advice I gave on your last question.
Let's try and leave people with one piece of advice. So if you can get something which speaks both to the 18-year-old who's about to leave high school, but also the perhaps 40-something-year-old who's thinking about going back into education. So in either case, they're both thinking about going back to college, going back to university. What would you say is the first thing that either of those people can do to put themselves in a really good place to make sure that they make the right decision for themselves at that time?
Again, yeah, not to sound like a broken record, but if I was in that situation, my rear would quickly be to the career center immediately. And the reason I keep focusing in on them so hard is, Jeremy, you think about it. Where do employers go to on a college campus if they want to hire students? They go to that building. So first of all your jobs for students are right there. Second of all, these professionals, because I work with them, I speak with when a lot of times when I go speak on their campuses, those are the ones who invite me. Those professionals are trained to be a career coach. Now, what's happening is, and your audience knows this, a lot of them are contemplating on hiring a career coach. Career coaching is not cheap. It can be 6 to 8 sessions, depending on your individual needs. In the United States, it can run, if you get the best coach, it could run up to $250 an hour. Your coaches generally $150 per hour. So it's an expensive endeavor. That's free for your college student. If you're thinking about going back to school, guess what? You have the same benefit of actually going there yourself. So let's say you're 35 years old. If you're thinking about going to school, go to the Career Service Center. They're there to help you. They'll help anybody. So go there and say, hey, I'm 35 years old. I've got my bachelor's degree in this. I'm applying to be a master's in this. I'm really trying to find out what I want to do with my life. What can you do to help me? They've got tools. They're professional educators. Right there is a free resource and a coach. And you can work with them. And guess what? As you work with them, Jeremy, you're building a network with them. You start to build networks with other people in that building. And so I know plenty of students who started there early. They go out to graduate. They had no idea what they wanted to do, but through seeing eyes through a career coach, a senior that has worked with a career coach is almost 9 times out of 10 more than likely to get a job out of college than a person that doesn't do this. And they go on, and those career service people love them so much, they're going to say, Jeremy, that kid has been here since his freshman year. This is the best candidate we have for you. And they're meeting with hiring managers. So right there is the way to do it.
That's an awesome piece of advice in an interview full of awesome pieces of advice. So thank you so much, Zack. Aside from career services, and obviously I'll link to your books in the show notes, are there any other particular resources that you can point people to if they want to dive into this subject in any more depth?
Yeah, things that have really helped me over the years, and it's just great to get different perspectives on, because I think we should get knowledge from all different parts, not just me, not just you. It really should be a diverse thing. And I recommend a couple of things. There's a podcast called The Ken Coleman Show. He's probably one of the top career coaches in North America. It's available on podcasts on Apple. And he sits down there and he actually takes calls on the radio. So you can actually call in on a show. Now, he's rather busy, so it may take you a few weeks to have that to get that call. But you can listen to these people's stories. And then they'll start to resonate with you. And then you'll hear his advice, and you may want to call into his show. Another thing, advice that I've read a few books that really have jolted me, and one of them was Start by John Acuff, Acuff. And Start is a book about how to find a career you love, how to find work that's meaningful, where to start. That's the whole book's premise. And John said something in there that kind of resonated with me my whole life. He said he wanted you to crash a plane in your life. And I reread that statement and read the chapter. And then I know exactly what he's talking about. He talked about a plane that crashed and there were survivors in it. And it's a pretty traumatic experience, as you can imagine, seeing other people pass away. And, you're the only few people that actually walk away from the flight. Wouldn't that change your life? And so our life is so short. We have a very finite amount of time on Earth. And so if those people, when they survived and walked away, they didn't just go start watching more TV. They changed their life. And so crash a plane in your life. And that really resonated with me. And that book's chock full of great tips. The third thing I would tell people to do and check out is a lot of careers involve business. And I'm not sure if it can happen in the UK, just in the United States. I encourage people to sell something. That sounds so weird, but what happens is you get an idea of a business in mind. So sell something on eBay. Sell something on Craigslist here. Begin dipping that in your process. Make money on that. Make money on that transaction. And believe it or not, you'll learn a lot about that. I've seen a lot of people propel into even small businesses by just selling something. And it sounds so simple, but I read it somewhere and I can't remember where I read it. So I hope those are some tools that'll help your audience outside of what I do.
That's brilliant. And I love this idea of just trying to sell something. I think that's a great idea. It pushes your boundaries. It means you're trying out new things. It's going to give you some skills for whatever you end up doing. So I think that's brilliant. If people want to find out more about you and maybe get in touch, where's the best place that they can do that?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jeremy. So Zack Ballinger, ZackBallinger.com is the best place to find me. You'll find my LinkedIn, you'll find my Instagram, Facebook, all those links where you want to follow us on social media. Those are through my three main platforms. And then in a couple months, you'll see a career library populated there. If not, if you want to watch the career library and you're dying to do that right now, if you simply search Zack Ballinger on YouTube, you'll be able to find me with multiple episodes. And that's really the best place is to find me at ZackBallinger.com.
Awesome. There will be a link in the show note. Zack, you've given us some absolutely fantastic advice. Thanks so much for joining me today.
A lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Okay, hope you enjoyed that interview with Zack Ballinger. I know that most of you listening to this episode will already have been through the university or college system, but I hope at the very least it provided you with some reassurance that whatever degree it was that you ended up doing, it doesn't need to define the shape of your career. And if maybe you've got kids and you're starting to think about whether they might go to college or university, well, hopefully there were some good tips from Zack there which will help them as well. I thought Zack gave some really sound advice at the end there, particularly when it comes to taking the decision whether or not to go back into education. Zack made the point that education is a tool and it doesn't automatically fix things. You've really got to ask yourself first, well, what do you need this qualification for? What's it going to enable you to do? It's very easy when we're in uncertain times or when you're unhappy with your job and you don't really know what you want to do next, just to default on, oh, well, maybe I should go and get some kind of a degree or certificate. But it might not make sense doing that unless you've got a really clear idea what you're going to do with it at the other end. I also found it quite uplifting that Zack was saying that Really, no matter what the subject is of your degree, having a degree of itself shows a certain skill set. It shows that you've got the application to complete a 3 or 4 year degree and to graduate. And that's not something to be sniffed at. It can take a lot of work to get there, so it does show that you've got the skills and determination to get there. I've put links to Zack's website and his books, and also the resources which he mentioned in the interview in the show notes page for this episode. They're at changeworklife.com/107. That's changeworklife.com/107. I loved what Zack was saying about using a university or college career service to figure out what you like doing, what you don't like doing, what you're good at. If you don't have access to a service like that, or you'd like to try and look at these sorts of things in a different way, then do check out the exercises on my website. You'll find them at changeworklife.com/happy. That's changeworklife.com/happy. One of those exercises in particular is designed to help you draw out these sorts of things. What are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? What don't you enjoy doing? So do check out those exercises. As I say, you'll find them at changeworklife.com/happy. Can't believe it's already 3/4 of the way through the year, and I really hope that for you 2021 has been better than 2020 was. What hasn't changed is that there's another great interview coming up next week, so subscribe to the show if you haven't already, and I can't wait to see you then. Cheers. Bye.